Good morning, everybody. My name is Nitin Rai. I'm chairman of Maximize and Eva.ai. We are a software company based out of Portland, Oregon. We've been in business for about 32 years. We launched the industry's first electronic health records platform back in 1994. So I'm very familiar with this group, this conference. But we've been out of ophthalmology for a little while, and we're back again at this show. So I'm excited to be back. Before I start my presentation, just a raise of hands, how many of you guys use AI in your daily lives? That's a large number, so exciting. So I'm very excited to talk about how AI is really at this, it's kind of at the cusp of really transforming your business, the business of ophthalmology, and where all the opportunities are, and how we as a company can really be here to serve you, to improve your patients' lives, and also reduce the burnout, which a lot of us are facing today in the industry. So just from a history standpoint, I'm actually an AI guy from the 1980s. I started my career in 1987 in Silicon Valley at a company called Quintus Computer Systems, which built essentially a language, a programming platform called Prolog that was used to build back then what we called expert systems. And expert systems were really knowledge-based systems that did a lot of reasoning. There was some basic intelligence, but it was all tied around rules. So you programmed rules about a certain domain or certain expertise, and it would operate pretty similar to how things operate today, but at a very rudimentary level. So that was back in the 80s. And AI goes way back to the 1960s with a program called ELIZA that I actually used in college. It was a conversational AI system that you sit and chat with all day long. And we used to joke around, we called it our therapist in the computer lab, just dealing with a lot of students who were having computer problems. So we started with rules-based systems, and then in the 90s, the technology, so AI kind of took a sleep in the late 80s. There were companies that were going to go public, the markets crashed. We didn't have the data, we didn't have the compute power to really make it work as a full-blown system, though I did build one of the first, I would say, commercially available products on Earth, where it would take data feeds and create computer graphics, matching, using pattern matching and rules-based technology. So back in the 90s, AI evolved to what was called machine learning before we got into LLMs. And machine learning was really more about statistical analysis, using more of the data with the internet coming to play. More data was accessible, computer power was getting better. Till like 2010s when Google announced it's called the transformer algorithm, which really took what was the neural net technology. Neural nets are basically a representation of the human brain in software. And that has led to the explosion of what we're seeing today with the LLMs such as ChatGPT and Claude. It's really neural nets coming into a huge play. So we're going to, kind of talk about all of those things in my presentation on how these different technical pieces are foundational to today's AI and also the future AI of where AI is headed. So before I start talking about that, I want to talk about the problem. The big problem in the ophthalmology industry or the eye care industry. We have a shrinking workforce today. So some of the studies and data is showing that there's going to be a decline in the number of practicing ophthalmologists in the next 10 to 15 years. And we're losing about 126 physicians every year. There's rising demand for eye care as population ages. There's a growing disease burden. As you can see, the statistics where there's more cataracts, more glaucoma, more macular degeneration, a lot of diabetic retinopathy. And this is going to create a capacity gap. Also, on the practice side, as you've all experienced post-pandemic, it's really hard to find good people and have them stick with you. So we're all overloaded with work. So demand is accelerating, workforce is shrinking, and workloads are rising. And of course, insurance continues to squeeze us. So here's the big AI moment in ophthalmology, right? There's rapid growth in clinical and in operational data. Everybody's using an EMR. We're all collecting tons and tons of data, imaging, textual data, numerical data about the patient. There are emergence of AI-driven tools. We've seen some consolidation happen recently with Retina AI. So there's been technological innovations that have been ongoing with AI over the last 20 years, especially in the imaging area. We also know that AI can help with this growing clinical workload. So in the practice of ophthalmology, which is very objective, there's subjective, but there's a lot of objective data that we're dealing with on a daily basis in our offices. I think eye care, ophthalmology is really uniquely suited for high volume imaging type environment and using AI as an assistant. It's not a replacer, it's an enhancer. So just to touch quickly on the evolution of the eye care technology, when I started in 1994, majority of you guys, maybe some of you guys were not even in practice then, were using paper in the office. And we came up with this solution of a computerized system to allow you to eliminate paper, have some level of automation, but there's still a lot of data entry that you're dealing with. There's not a lot of automation, right? So that's the electronic health records. Then in the mid to late 90s, imaging started to appear. And suddenly the ophthalmologists that I'm trying to pitch to, they're using imaging. They're going, okay, now it makes sense for me to put an EHR. Can you integrate this, right? So that's how that next evolution of automation happened. And today, with government mandates, everybody is now required to use an EHR. Majority of you guys use EHR, though somebody yesterday showed up in our booth, they're still on paper, but they're excited about AI and how that could be helpful for them to sort of augment what they're doing with paper-based systems. And so today where we are is that we have AI that can actually provide clinical insights. There's enough in those LLMs, and I'm sure a lot of you played with it, that it actually give you a lot more than you thought it would. So what is this going to lead to? From our vantage standpoint, as a technologist, as somebody that has been in your business for a long time, we see a hybrid approach of AI in bringing the old AI to this new AI, in combining it. And why that's important is because AI today hallucinates, and we need to make sure that AI is safe. AI is moated around with your data, and that you're also not just capitalizing on data that lives out in the universe, in this whole LLM universe, but you actually have wisdom in your systems that you're using. That needs to be enhanced, and I think AI can be very effective in actually just using your own data to enhance your life. So here's what the ophthalmology AI stack looks today from our vantage standpoint and where it's headed. So there are really four key components or functions in your office. There's diagnostic, there's clinical decision-making, there's documentation, and there's practice automation, which includes patient walking in and patient leaving, and then whatever else you have to do in terms of dealing with that patient, whether it's sending out referral letters, billing the insurance companies, communicating with the patients, getting them back in the office, et cetera, et cetera. So those four items I'm going to talk about in more detail, but the foundational AI around AIfying those functions is a clinical rules engine. And that clinical rule engine is essential to provide the guardrails, to provide the protocols, and also have that data mode that really protects the data that is being stored in your system, as well as data that you might be grabbing from these LLMs. That has to be protected. So what does the diagnostic AI look like? Well, that includes image analysis from all of your various equipment that you use, such as OCD, fundus cameras, and other digital equipment that you're using in surgery or any kind of diagnostic, the relevant clinical findings that come out of that, the signs and symptoms, and then this whole pattern recognition of screening and triage, where it's looking at prior data and trying to recognize certain patterns or trends that help you diagnose that patient better, right? Why does accuracy matter? Accuracy matters because you want to prevent misdiagnosis, right? you don't want the system to start hallucinating, as I'm sure a lot of you may have experienced that using ChatGPT or Claude. That data isn't really, you're using probability in the LLMs to get to certain results, and sometimes it gets confused because it's got data from so many sources, right? Clinical decisions require repeatability, and AI must align with those established protocols. The LLMs are not going to do that. They may do a certain extent, and they may befool you, but don't be fooled by them. Your intelligence is in the data that you already hold, and the collective wisdom that comes from peer-reviewed data. That is the most important part of the AI, moving forward. And the variability has to be minimized. So this is like a quick sort of graphical view of what I'm talking about in terms of, what clinical grade AI requires, which is more than an LLM. It requires a rules engine, and it requires these data modes and sort of proprietary ways of analyzing the data, which is inside of this product called EVA, and then also using the big AI models to get intelligence, and then combining it together so that you have something that makes sense for your practice, for your business. So in terms of AI and imaging, what we're seeing today is a lot of innovation is accelerating. You can literally send an image to ChatGPT and it will analyze it for you. I just did that over a 15-minute conversation with ChatGPT. I was throwing in images from various diabetic retinopathy images, and it was diagnosing it, right? Now, how accurate it was, I don't know. I'm not an ophthalmologist. But certainly, these LLMs have some level of intelligence to give you some guidance, right? But patient safety is still at the operative word. These systems are not safe right now, right? So clinicians have to balance efficiency with that kind of responsibility, right? So the two realities are innovation is moving faster than patient safety, and oversight is critical. I think there needs to be guidance from the government or from organizations like the Academy in terms of how AI should be used in patient care. In terms of clinical decision making, we have a lot of data to support the clinical insights. AI can help with risk stratification. It can do things at a much faster rate than even me writing a piece of code, honestly. So that's where the advantage with AI is that it really becomes a great aid in terms of retrieving data, presenting information to you in a very concise manner so you can make better decisions. Documentation is another level, right? We are now at a point where, 20 years ago, we used to use Dragon and it never worked, right? Today, these LLMs, the AI technologies, they have built-in voice recognition, and it's another level. So we see ambient listening and voice recognition as being inherent in your daily lives inside of the office. We envision a touchless EMR. And the way to get to the touchless EMR is capitalizing on these AI technologies that are coming out at a very rapid rate. Additionally to the voice recognition, the automated clinical note generation is going to be an important piece of what you do. So you're not having to print oodles of paper that is just showing all the fields that you put into your system. So creating comprehensive notes and sharing that with whoever needs to be able to see those notes, it's going to be very, very important in terms of the documentation part of the AI. And what it does is it actually reduces the time that you spend charting. We have customers who have pretty much reduced the number of clicks down to 3 or 4 because they talk to the system. They're talking, it's recording, and it's creating a note, and then it's putting all that data back in the EMR. In terms of practice automation, again, this technology is out already. There's IVR technologies. There's appointment scheduling, optimization that can happen via chatbots. There's billing and revenue cycle workflows that can be handled by AI so that all of the data can be submitted to the insurance companies. The EOBs can be downloaded and automatically posted. So the billing staff that you have instead of like sitting there and crunching numbers and putting data in, they become the reviewers and they become sort of the gatekeepers of making sure that everything that's going in and going out is accurate. So what this leads to is what we call the AI operating system. And the AI operating system really requires deep connectivity between everything that goes on in your office. So everything has to be integrated. It can't be that, well, I'm only using AI for my scribing. You got to use the entire gamut of tools to make your office most efficient, better at taking care of your patients and reducing your workload and burnout. So here's the future of well, it's not the future, it's actually working today in EVA. The AI part starts actually even before the patient arrives. Just imagine a patient getting a text message saying, hey, you're coming in for your appointment. Can I just take an interview really quick and find out what your chief complaint is, what your problem is before you come to the office, why you're coming to the office, and really pre-interviewing the patient while they're at home, before they even walk in the office, and grab all of that preclinical data that's required that your pre-test person has to enter. All that stuff can be taken in before the patient walks in. And when the patient walks in, they're already checked in. That can happen. It does happen. The next step to that would be on the pre-test area, all of the imaging, all of that stuff. As the patient's going through that workflow, your technician is not entering data. The technician is just talking. And the ambient listening devices are listening to that conversation and interpreting the data from that and putting it into your EMR. So that's that next part. After that, you've got the clinical review, the diagnostic systems that can then use, an image could be pre-screened by the AI and give you some pointers as to what the disease might be. It may not actually diagnose it, but it might give you some pointers that might make you aware of what you should be looking at before you make that final diagnosis. And then the next step would be the clinical documentation, where it generates a SOAP note. It's easy to read, it's comprehensive, and from the SOAP note, it puts all that data back into your EHR, goes into the billing, and the billing agent takes over and takes care of all of the insurance crap that you have to deal with, right? So this is what we feel as the workflow that will happen in these offices. Maybe even in the next 24 months, you're going to start seeing this happening a lot. In terms of the data flywheel, again, that data communication is critical for all of this to work. Everything has to be connected. It cannot be in disjunct systems. So if these systems are not talking to each other, you're not going to get the full advantage of it. It will be piecemeal. So this part is essential. And EVA actually operationalizes this data flywheel, and it's designed to take all of this together. By the way, EVA is EHR independent. It can plug and play. It can integrate into any EHR system, so you can slap it on to whatever you're using. As long as it can be connected, it will work. So this is the EVA agentic workflow. It's a multi-agent technology. Nobody has it. This is the industry's first multi-agent platform that takes AI from front to back. So the patient, as the patient walks in and as the patient leaves, all of these functions are fully automated inside of EVA. And why does EVA win? It has the hybrid architecture. So all my learnings from the 80s have shown up here in terms of the rules-based, because you need the rules-based system to make sure there's data integrity, there's security, there's safety. So you can't just throw it into an LLM and expect probability to solve the problem for you. There's workflow ownership, so there's not one point solution. It's all completely connected, completely integrated. It's ophthalmology focused, it's template driven, so you can actually model your workflow inside of EVA. How you do your exam is modeled inside of EVA. And so when you look at the SOAP note, review it, and say it's good to go, it takes your template, and then merges into your EHR. And it's learning continuously. That's why it's the flywheel. So that AI, that intelligence is continuously learning and improving. And it's tied into your data first. So that's where we see AI going. We'd love for you to come and look at EVA at our booth 2213, 2123, and see where we can take you in the next 20 years. Thank you. We're open to any questions. Yes, sir.
So you left ophthalmology and came back. Why did you leave ophthalmology in the first place?
So we left because we never left. We just didn't come to this trade show. We were still in ophthalmology. We started out in the optometry business. And in 2004, I took a lot of venture capital. And then we had to kick out the venture capitalists because we were going to go public and it didn't happen. So we took a step back and said, let's just rebuild the system, because we started in optometry and built the ophthalmology version, but then we had too much going on and we said, let's just stay focused in optometry. We recreated Maximize, and then we've come back to ophthalmology. We started going to the academy, but not to ASCRS. So it's the first time we're back in ASCRS after a long time.
And for different doctors, the workflow is different?
Yeah, all workflows are customizable. But our vision is, you can use Maximize, but I'll tell you 90% of the ophthalmologists do not want to rip their EHR. It's a bad marriage, but it's a marriage that works. So we don't want to screw with that. What we want to do is augment it with the AI platform, which is EVA. All right, thank you. Come visit our booth.